Oh man, what a day. We're live. We are live. Sorry about that, guys. We've been having some serious technical difficulties. I'm here with Evan and David, and we've been hanging out, assuming that we were live, and we weren't. So if you're still with me, I appreciate that. This is definitely one of those days. And so Brennan is here. Josh popped in. Chris was there for a while. And Dean was here early. There we go. Okay, so now we're hitting. So what's been happening? I've been trying to get Bias to work, as you can hear. Bias is working. We can't see it live right now, so I've got an image of it just so I can kind of talk you through it. We're going to do some tones today in Bias amp. We're going to take a look at it. This is the interface here. Across the top, I'm going to make it big, cover up the chat just for a second here. So across the top, we have kind of our workflow. You have your panel, which goes to your preamp. See if I can get an EQ. If you add an EQ in there, you can mess with your tone stack, your power amp, your transformer, the cabinet. You can actually add impulse responses to it. And then you can add your EQ, a post EQ, and then also has amp match, which I don't have any amps with me. They're all in storage right now, but you can take a impulse response of your amplifier and then have it play inside this. So if you have a favorite amp or favorite, even going through your pedals and all that kind of stuff, it'll take a snapshot of that, and you'll be able to get that similar sound through the plugin, which we're not going to do today because, like I said, I don't have an amplifier with me today. But we're going to go through some different sounds. I'm going to get Evan and David to I'm just checking, make sure there's no other participants waiting to come in. I'm going to get Evan and David to... What happened? Okay, here we are. It's it's one of those days. Oh, goodness gracious. I'm going to move this over here. Oh. Okay, thank you for bearing with me again. There we go. We're back. We're back. Okay, so we're going to start doing some tones. The first tone that I have up there, this is my own blackface sound. I like a Fender amp with a little crunch on it, a little cranked. So that way it gives me some room to back my volume knob down and clean up a little bit. Also, I find when you have a Fender amp that's on the edge of breakup, it takes pedals really, really, really well. So the gain I have is it's at about 9. The bass is pretty high. It's at 7. Now on a real Fender amp, I wouldn't have the bass that high. Let me lower it down. It's not breaking up. Listen to the low end right here as I take it back up to where it was. You hear that kind of farty low end on a Fender amp. I rarely ever, even if I crank, actually, if I cranked the Fender amp loud, I would have less bass in it. The lower you get, the more bass that the signal, the way that the signal flow goes through can handle. So I'm going to put this about 4. Middle I have way up. So to give it a little weight when you're playing single notes. Now if I scoop it like most people do, it has a thinner kind of sound. I liked it a little with a little bit more mid-range in there. It has a little bit more of a vocal sound. The treble I've got around 5. Not too bright. If you can really tear some people's heads off if you crank the high end on a Fender. So the treble and the presence are all about 4.5, and the master I have up high, pretty high on 8. I also have the noise gate on. It's a pretty low threshold, not too much there, and the reverb I have is a chamber. It's not a spring like a real Fender, but it sounds pretty close. It's pretty nice. So that's my sound that I've worked on in the past, but we're gonna make some new tones today, and I'm gonna ask Evan, what was the amp that you had? You said you had was it a Sun amp?
It's, my old vintage amp. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
a Sun. It's a Sun Model A.
Okay, great. So a Sun Model A. Do you know the kind of tubes it uses in that? Do you know if they're like EL 6L6s or EL?
Yeah, it's two 12AX7s.
Okay.
Or I'm sorry, 4 12AX7s and two 6XL6s, I think.
6L6. So
yeah.
So you've got so it's going to be in kind of the Fender realm because of the 6L6s. The and not all the time. Some Marshalls have 6L6s too, but usually it's the EL34 power amp tubes are on the Marshall side. They give you more of a hard hitting push. So I'm going through all of the different amps that they have here, and here's the ones that they have for in their presets. They have a RC120. It's like a Roland JC 120. We've got a British 900 that's clean. A Matchless 30 that's clean in the high watt style. Then we have the glassy section that's got this is like the Fenders. We've got three black faces, a British 66 British TB30, and then a Dumble clean. So that's going to be more in your, bluesy Fender breakup style. Then we have blues. We have American Bassman, Tweed Lux, Mini Duoverb, and then a British JTM45. So we're kind of working our way up there. The J45 here gives you those kind of early Clapton sounds. Then we get to crunch. We've got our Marshalls, the Plexi 50 watt, the Lead 800, the high watt, the Marshall Super Lead, and the Plexi. And let's see, in the high gain, we have our British Rock 50. There's an SLO, and let's see. Then we get into our metal amps, which a lot of these are like either Mesas or the 5150 style amps, and also an SLO in there. Insane. Then we have some acoustic. These are kind of like keyboard amps, vocal amps, bass amps, and custom, which I don't have anything under there. So I'm gonna go to the blues setting for something like that, like your Sun there. I'm going to go to like a Tweed Bassman sound. So here is just their stock preset. Put it on my bridge pickup. You can really hear the difference between a Tweed amp and a Tweed amp and then like a Blackface, the later Fender amps in the way they break up on your bridge pickup. So you hear that kind of rasp, the way that breaks up. That's a Tweed type sound. Where here is my Blackface one on my bridge. You hear how much smoother that it doesn't have that rasp on the. It's a let's see. Here's it back to the basement, the tweed basement. You hear how it cuts through a little bit more. It reminds me of like Neil Young's rhythm playing. That kind of a sound, that tweed breakup sound. So let's see here. So the Sun, what wattage is your Sun amp? Is it like a?
I think it's a 60 watt.
60 watt. Okay, so you have to crank it pretty hard to get that to break up. Have you played? Do you get to crank it up in the house often?
Well, I haven't gotten to play it since I bought it about 20 years ago. It needs its service. It needs to be worked on before I turn the thing on again.
Okay.
I'm afraid to blow it up.
Okay. Does it make squealing sounds when you turn it on and all that
No,
stuff?
last time I used it, it really just was a little. It had a little bit of a hiss to it, but nothing terrible.
Let's see here. Let's do
And it was loud. I couldn't crank that thing up in the house. There was no way.
I'm gonna go more for a Fender sound for that. So it's 6L6 is then 60 watts and it's loud and clean, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So it's not a distorted sound at all. So this is a 65. This is more like a twin type sound. Let's turn the reverb on a little bit. So we went from a little bit of breakup on the first one that I have. Then we have we went and tried the tweed, and that had that raspy kind of breakup on the bottom. Now I went for a bigger, cleaner sound that doesn't have a lot of breakup at all. And so now we're going to go to David, and we're going to find out. Now you have, is it a Line 6 amp? I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I got a Line 6 Spider amp.
What do you use mostly when you practice? What preset on that do you use?
I have been clean mainly on practice.
Okay.
And then when I'm just goofing around, I have a Metal Zone pedal, Boss pedal that I use.
Okay, so clean is like a Fender type sound, and
right.
Then you've got the Metal Zone pedal on top of that. Okay, so we've done the clean, but let's go for like a more of a metal sound. Okay.
One thing I would like to do is, and I haven't been able to duplicate the sound, is the Black Sabbath riffs, because he plays a lot on the low E string. The riffs start on the low E string, and it has a unique sound.
Yeah, that's a
that I can't get.
I think that's a fuzz pedal that he uses on a. So let's see here. Let me find that. Let's see here. So we got Black Sabbath. For what sound was it? Song were you for?
Well, I mean, all of them. Paranoid and just the Black Sabbath song.
So the early Sabbath. Right.
Okay.
So just not the stuff with Ronnie James Dio. You want the Aussie Sabbath.
Right.
Right. So there's maybe a difference in tone there.
All right. From what I remember, it was a fuzz. I'm gonna try and see if I can. Iron Man. So it's so for Iron Man, Tony Iommi was using an SG into a Range Master treble booster into a Laney head. So it's a treble booster, and it kind of when it breaks it up, to me it has almost like a fuzz type sound. So that may be that combination of the amp and the pedal would give something that's kind of tough to do. If I was going to do a Tony Iommi sound, I would go for some like Marshall type high gain sound. So let's try this. Let's try with the British Rock 50. And let me see what this is. right, so let's try and dial this in a little bit more. We'll put a little more gain in there, a little more bass. Now this is the British Rock 50 preset, and it has an orange orange Tolex covering to the amp. So I don't know if it's trying to go for more of like an orange amp breakup. What's that missing to you? What for a Black Sabbath sound? What do you think it could use a little more of?
It needs to be tuned down. Just a half a step. It really adds that sludge factor to it.
Well, I'll go down to drop D.
There you go.
I'd say that's close. That's getting there. It's getting there. Let's see here. I'm gonna take a look at the cabinet of the speakers. So this is using Celestion V30s, and we've got a lot of different Celestions, some Mesa type speakers. I'm gonna go for a lot of the older Marshall type sounds were with greenbacks, which are 25 watt speakers in a 412 cabinet. So I'm gonna try those. And I can mess with the microphone and take it more off to the side of the speaker. So given that to me has a little bit more of a classic sound. I think I went a little too far. I'm going to move back to the cone of the speaker a little bit. You hear the big difference that just by changing the speakers to the amp and then moving the microphone a little bit away from the center of the speaker, you get a really different... This is almost like a Soundgarden type sound. You can change the microphone. Let's try changing the microphone. So this is using this regular SM57. I'm going to go to the Sennheiser 421 and see what that does. What was the difference? What I'm going to play the two again. So I'm going to hit the SM57. And then I'm going to go back to the Sennheiser microphone. Can you hear a big difference between the two? Or is it very minimal to you?
Not a big difference, but I feel like there's a slight bit more depth to the Sennheiser.
Yeah, it's a little warmer. It doesn't cut through as much. What do you think, David? Is it?
No, same. Yeah.
They sound about the same.
Not a huge difference, though.
Yeah. So a lot of these plugins, you can go deep into the plugins. You can, and they start off with changing amps and changing the speakers, and it's a really good learning tool. So you can get to know what you like in a guitar sound before you spend a whole lot of money. So I know when I changed to the greenbacks, the 25s, I was going to get more of a classic type sound. But I wasn't sure the difference, what that was going to sound like between the Sennheiser and the SM57. They also have a ribbon microphone. Let's Let's hear if that makes any difference. To me, that sounds far away. It almost sounds like there's some distance going there.
Doesn't have the clarity.
Doesn't have a clarity. So I'm going to move the microphone right in the middle of the center of the speaker. Let's see. Still didn't change much at all. So I'm going to go back to the 57. And if I put that right in the middle of the speaker cone, it really cuts through. So these are the things, as like I said with David, when I play these things, the sound differences are small, and it's where things get nitpicky. But that's that's sometimes, especially if you're recording, that little bit of where the high end cuts through might make it sound, it might make it move to the front more. So these things are fun, but they're not exactly huge tone differences. So that's kind of like it started off Tony Iommi and ended up being kind of Soundgarden to me. Another thing that people who play solely in these plugins and they play them through their computer, listening on headphones, and that they're missing is the room itself. And if you notice, when you play a lot of these plugins, you don't get feedback like you would if you turn your amp all the way up in a room, and that has a big part of the sound. If you notice on the intro to the podcast that I do every week, that clip I wrote a long time ago, and the beginning has all that feedback, and there's like 4 or 5 different guitars that are all feeding back at the same time. I did those with plugins, but they had these things that you could put on your guitar that actually vibrates your guitar using the sound that comes out of your headphones. So the sound, I took a headphone out of the board, went into this little, it's like a mini speaker that clips to your guitar, and it actually vibrated the wood of the guitar, and it allowed it to feed back without me having to have the police called on me in my neighborhood there. So okay, so we've done a Fender breakup, we've done a Fender clean, we've done this is like an orange, cranked orange sound, but in more like a Tony Iommi, and it turned up being Soundgarden. Let's move on to let's talk about some of the guitar players that we've been dealing with. So let's talk about Joe Satriani. So I'm going to go to David for this, right? What kind of amps do you think he uses?
I really don't know.
He is a Marshall guy, and he uses Marshall amps with the Boss DS1 in front of him. Let's see here. Let me see if I can get a high gain Marshall. These are all low gain Marshalls. Let's see here. Most of their high gains. Well, here's a Soldano and SLO. Let's see if this will be cool. Okay, so now we're kind of in. Here's our high gain territory, right? So this is a Soldano. I'm not really digging it. I'm going to try a different one. So I'm going to go to, let's try this 5150. Well, let's try this Mesa. I'm going to go back to the SO. These are not remind me of Satch. Try 1 or 2 more. There we go. Now this is a 5150 preset. It's called the Insane 5153. They had to change it a little bit off of 5150, but it's based on that amp that was originally a PV amp that Eddie Van Halen helped come up with, and it started off. They took the Soldano circuit and made some changes to it, and Eddie found out the stuff he liked, and it ended up being like a metal type amp, but it's a pushed Fender type sound. So what we have here is I've got the gain on 7, the bass on 7, the middle on 5, treble on 5, presence on 6, and the master is at 6. And now what I'm going to do, I'm going to pull the mids down a little bit, and I'm going to push them back up. Not a whole lot of difference in the mids. Treble down a little bit.
Here's where Joe plays.
So when you have a hot rodded Marshall sound, it makes those pick harmonics just jump out. So basically all I'm doing, let's see here, is I'm taking my thumb and touching the string at the same time. So I'm just kind of touching the edge of my thumb to the string as I pick it. And this end's just playing one note. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the speakers here. And I think this is 25 watt greenbacks. I think he changes speakers a lot. So let's see here if I can find, here's V30s. See what that does. Big change, right? Doesn't even sound like the same amp. It's just same exact amp, same settings, new speakers. A little bit duller, wasn't as bright as the 25s. Let's try some other selection. That sounds more like your regular hard rock Marshall sound to me. And that is the 5150 into some Celestis G12Vs. You hear what a big difference it makes just changing the speaker cabinet? Really big difference.
Yeah.
Now let's go to the microphone here as well. This has all been with the SM57. Now I'm gonna go to the Sennheiser. A little bit of a change, not a whole lot. Now the ribbon. Not as bright, but a bigger kind of sound. A little bit of distance. And then here is an AKG. Not much difference there. I'm going back to the 57. There's a reason why the 57. Now, if I had a Boss DS1 and put it in front of that, we'd be getting Satriani tone all over the place. Okay, what's another amp that you might want to try? What do you guys think? Is there anything? How about you, Evan? Is there anything else that we might want to take a look at?
I want the Vox.
Okay,
Vox has a very particular clean sound.
Let's find a Vox amp here. there's the Matchless 30. Matchless amps are a variation of a Vox. So if we can't find one, I will grab that. Glassy, we've got Blackface British. I think this is. So this is a 66 British.
Yeah, it already sounds like the Who.
Yeah. So let me check this preset and see what amp this is. The 66 British TB30. So I'm gonna type that in. 66 TB30 preset. Let's make sure. All right. So let's see what the 66 British TB. Okay, so this is the Vox AC30. Okay, so what makes you sound like what to you? What about that sounds like the Who?
It's got this not quite glassy, but this very particular high end to it.
It's different, isn't it?
It really is. It's bassy. It's almost chimey, but not glassy.
Here's on the bridge. Yeah, and it has a grind to it as well at the same time. So it's kind of like it sounds like two amps. It sounds like a clean amp and a grind amp at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah, that low where you would get a chunk on another amp, it's almost clean. But the mid-range is still breaking up. Nice. That's a nice Vox sound. Okay, so I'm gonna mess with this a little bit. Let's see. Let's put a little more gain on it. Let's try and go to Brian May territory. Okay, so we get the let's add a little. Need a pedal to really get in his territory. Definitely some of the rhythm of Brian May in the Queen song. Yeah, that's very nice. Let's mess with the speakers a little bit. So this is using Alnico Blue open back cabinet. Let's see here. Let's try for a 212 British some. Oh, it kind of loses some of that, doesn't it? It sounds more like a Marshall.
It does.
Yeah, let's go back to the, where was it? Alnico Blue. Yeah, that's neat. It shows you how important speakers are. You know, speakers are a huge part of the tone. And just changing the same settings and the same amp with some speakers, you can really get some different sounds too. I'm gonna look at the preamp and see if there's any way I can goose the preamp. Now we're getting Brian May a little bit. Let's do one. So it's got a nice when you push the preamp a lot, it doesn't sound like a Marshall, but it has tons of sustain. It still has that kind of grind in it, even though it's a saturated sound. That was pretty neat. That's pretty neat. Go back to where it was. Now you can really go nuts with this. So here's what we have. We have you can mess with the EQ settings in the preamp stage. You can mess with the tube stages, the distortion, the low cut frequency, high cut frequency, the bias of the amp. And that's how the power tubes are running. You can make them go colder. It's going to be tighter and hotter, where you get a little bit more breakup in the low end there. Pretty neat. So Dave, these are the sounds that are going to be in the Spark amp. I don't know if they're going to give this much access to all these little tiny different things, but if you say that they have like a user forum where you can download all
SoundCloud.
Yeah, SoundCloud thing, that I've got that here on mine too. I'm going to try again now that we're here and see if I can add this screen, see if it'll work now. Just trying.
That's one of the reasons why I want to get that Spark amp, is because, with this modeling amp I have, and my ear's not attuned to, like you guys could say, that's a Marshall, that's a, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I can't do that. And
Right.
then when I hear the songs and they're talking about adjusting the gains and the bass and all that, it's just like,
well, let's talk.
I'm hoping with the Spark amp, you can actually, look at it when you say, Black Sabbath, and dial it in and be able to see where everything's at.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a really good learning tool to learn all of those things. When I was first starting, you didn't have anything like this. You were lucky to get a tube screamer pedal and whatever amp you had, and that's about all you got. All you got. But now you can get even just the amp that you have right now, and to be able to go through the different models of the amps and find out, well, what is the amp that they can't say the exact name for licensing issues, but as you go through the presets, just look online real quick and see, hey, what is the amp that they're trying to sound like? And you can start, like you say, you like Joe Satriani, you can figure out, well, he uses a certain style of Marshall for his classic stuff, and then a certain pedal and certain speakers. Once you start to find those things, you can dial in, you can figure out, well, is that what I like when I'm playing or not?
Right.
Or you could just go through the presets and when you find something you like, then figure out what that is. But basically you got Fender, which is clean. Okay. And Fender, the first amps were the tweed, they call them tweed amps. And that's just because of the covering was a tweed covering on the amplifier. And they were underpowered amps. So they were meant to be clean, but when bands started getting louder, they would crank them all the way up. And they had a certain type of breakup to them that sounded wonderful. It was a really cool sound. It's got a happy accident. But people were also complaining, well, they're not clean enough. We want to be able to play along with a drummer who plays loud, and we still want a clean sound. So then they started doing the blackface amps, the 60s amps, and then the Fender blackface amps, and then they went to silverface. It's the same amp, just later on, and went from there. So they were kind of going in the clean to breakup section. But at the same time, you had people like the Who wanted distortion. They liked that happy accident, that distortion. So they wanted people to be able to take that Fender sound that they heard with breakup and get more of it. And so the Marshall, Jim Marshall he took the old Fender Bassman circuit and modded it and got more gain out of it. And then Marshall was started. You know, so for a long time, those were the two sides. You had your clean amps, right? And you had your hard rock amps, which were the Marshall amps. And then that's kind of how it went. And then as time goes on, people split off from there. You know, so Marshall amps, they wanted to get even more. You had Soldano amps. They kind of took the Marshall circuit and changed it. And then on the Fender side, it was clean, but when you add distortion to that clean sound, you got some different sounds too, like Mesa Boogie sounds. And so knowing the history of these amps and knowing the bands that use those amps will allow you to better understand them, and then you can form your own sounds too. You know, so I think I think that Spark Amp's going to be a good thing for you. I want to get my hands on one and do some videos for them. I've seen a couple good videos people have done already, but okay, so I'm going to check the chat real quick. We haven't checked in a while. Brennan says, I've tried using iRig products before, but had limited success. I always get a ton of background noise when going to my computer. Yeah, I've never used the iRig stuff, but I do know what you're talking about background noise when going into your computer. You just have to have a setting that makes sure you're not picking up the microphone and just coming from your guitar. They asked, David asked you, this was before you guys came on, what interface you were using. And you use the AudioBox 96, which I'm getting one too from my other room there as well. So I've been using PreSonus stuff for a long time. And a lot of people like the Scarlett too. I've never used it before, so I don't know. Chris,
I'm happy with mine. I'm very happy with the PreSonus. It's very straightforward, easy to use.
Yeah, I like the mix knob, you know, so you can hear exactly what you're playing, or you can hear what's coming back from the computer because you have that lag sometimes.
Right.
So that's good. I'm glad. So let's see here. Dino. Josh is here. And they were just talking about some of the sounds that we were going through. And Dino said that was cheating for me when I talked about the sustain trick I did with the thing. I'm gonna I still have those. And when we get to Florida, I'll pull those out. We'll do a whole kind of how to get feedback in quiet, quiet feedback. Let's see. And Josh says, had a Dean Markley, if I spelled it right. I really liked it. I wish I still had it. Okay, good. So let's do a couple more. We started late, so let's do a couple more tones here. So that was the Vox. We've done all different types of Fenders. We did an orange type amp. So I think we'll do the other big ones that are used are the Plexi Marshalls, and they have a Dumble Clean in here too. Let me see if they have a Dumble Overdriven as well. And so Dumble, do you guys know about Dumble amplifiers?
Aren't they a modded Fender circuit?
They sure are. And they aren't cheap.
Oh no, they're like my house. I could sell it and probably not afford a Dumble.
Right, right. So it looks like they just have a Dumble Clean on this level that I have here. So I'm gonna play the Dumble Clean real quick. Here we go. To me, it just sounds kind of like a pristine Fender sound. It doesn't really sound too. Yeah, the Dumble Clean to me is okay, but it's not as good as when you overdrive the Dumble. That's where it really becomes something cool. So let's try for a Marshall Plexi sound. So here's one that I was messing with earlier. So the Plexi's gonna give you a classic rock sound. I'm gonna try a different
Yeah,
one.
like all of the 1970s.
Right.
Like,
And what was tricky with them is that none of them sounded the same. So you know you can have several different Plexis and they wouldn't sound exact. Same with the. And how people use them too. You'd have like Ted Nugent who would just turn them wide open. You know, let's turn it wide open. Every knob all the way up. How about that? Here we go. And then you have like Billy Gibbons who would use his volume knob a lot more and get all the in-between sounds. The old ZZ Top was that Marshall, just all the knobs all the way up. But what happens if we get rid of this treble in the presence a little bit? Warm it up a lot more. You get a really nice blues sound, and you don't really hear a lot of blues players talking about using Marshalls at all. But you can get some really, really great blues sound from a Plexi that's not cranked all the way up. I'm going to lower the gain on this a little bit too. Let's see what we got. That sounded almost like Angus Young. Josh says he never heard of Dumble till I just mentioned it. Yeah, it's Larry Carlton used Dumble amps and Robin Ford. A lot of really famous guitar players use them. It has a distinctive sound. They're real expensive, and I think he's still alive. It's Howard Dumble, and he would only make one for. He would make the amp for the player. So if you buy a used Dumble amplifier, you're actually buying an amp that's made for somebody else. Okay.
like there's a Dumble on Reverb right now that's going for $116,373.
Man, you need to jump
Let me
on
write a check.
Yeah. I'm gonna come check it out when you get it, Dave.
You better jump on that. Those things are like toilet paper, man. You gotta get them when you can get them. You know?
I have a case. Maybe I can trade it.
Maybe if you hold out.
I got toilet paper, man. I got toilet paper. I'll trade you your Dumble for the toilet paper. Okay. Any other amps you want to try? I want to try a good metal sound. Let's see. Let me try the triple tread.
Iron Maiden.
Let's see here. It's okay. And I also I have a Fender, so even though my pickup is more like a P90 pickup, still it's not. It was okay. Let's see here.
If I'm not wrong, one of the guys in Maiden plays a Stratocaster.
Yeah, with a humbucker though. That's.
Oh, it does have a humbucker.
Yeah, this doesn't have a humbucker. Nah. Well, I think in my opinion, this bias amp plugin, I like the Fender. I like the cleaner stuff. I like the Vox and the Fenders. Pretty good. I think the Marshall's okay, and I think that the metal sounds you have to work with. You know, they don't. Of course, I'm using the wrong guitar, but they didn't just pop it. It's like, okay, that's a
Right.
great metal sound. So that's without me being able to show you the actual screen what I'm doing. That's my best way of going through the presets and explaining to you what I was doing with it at the time. So, but I do think the Marshall sounds are good too. And I think how much is a DS1? I'm gonna get David. Let's see here. Boss DS1. How much are they going for now? $49. So if you put a Boss DS1 orange pedal in front of a Marshall style amp or a Marshall preset, you're going to get the Joe Satriani sound. Put a little delay on it in the amp too, and you'll get Steve Vai and Joe Satriani, those things. Okay, thank you guys.
And a little John Petrucci in there too.
Yeah, he uses Mesa Boogie amps, and doesn't he have an Ernie Ball guitar? I think
That sounds right. I'm not sure, but that sounds right.
yeah, I think he has a signature. Yeah, he has a Ernie Ball Music Man. He has a bunch of different ones there. So he uses Ernie Ball guitars with Mesa Boogie amps, and that's a lot of his sound. He uses a lot of rack gear too, so I don't know. I'll have to look into that. That'd be a good player to talk about too. I think that'd be he'd be a fun one to.
What's amazing about him is he's got one solo album, one,
Mm-hmm.
and it's amazing.
Yeah. Was Dream Theater still playing?
Dream Theater's new album just came out the end of last year, and it's phenomenal.
Yeah. Didn't he do some jazz stuff too? I think he did a jazz. He did something like completely out of left field about.
Yeah, well, he has a side band, and that's the name of his solo album called Suspended Animation.
Okay, John.
And I think the group is called I think they did do some kind of fusey stuff.
Yeah. I typed in jazz, and it just came up his guitar pick he uses, which is a Dunlop Jazz 3.
Yeah, the signature pick.
Yeah. So that didn't do it. But have you ever played one of those Jazz 3 picks before? The small ones?
I have. I've got a whole bunch of them here. I do not care for the Jazz 3.
What about it don't you like?
Well, they were just too small. I've got the little, I think these are the Eric Johnson ones.
Right.
But what I use now are the, wherever I put it, are the Jazz 3 XL.
Okay.
And these are fantastic. I was using the Sharps for a little bit, but I've really fallen for these.
The Jazz 3 XL.
And they have them in your blue Tortex too, Lee.
Oh, good.
That's one of my favorite things about them. I can get them in the Tortex.
So it has the shape, that pointy shape of a Jazz 3, but it's bigger. Is that what?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, that was one thing I could never. Yeah, look at that. Very nice.
Yeah, Jazz 3 XL.
Awesome. Here's mine. Been through the washing machine and the dryer and.
Oh yeah, I don't know where all these went. I think I've got one or two left, and there should still be another 24 somewhere, but they went where all the other ones went, I guess.
I'm gonna get some of those. That's pretty cool. I didn't know about that. What you got there, David?
Yeah.
If you want to play like Joe Satriani, you got to buy his picks.
Of course.
Right. Which he designed
He
himself.
actually drew those horrible-looking aliens on the picks. It's horrible.
Yeah.
But they have a similar profile there, the almost teardrop shape
That's
that
right.
the Jazz pick has.
That's right. Okay, guys, I'm gonna go ahead and wrap things up in a few minutes. But do you guys anything else? Any questions you guys have, or is there any other? I wish I could have shown more of the bias plugin, but these things happen.
But what was on my mind the whole time that we were doing this is these are effects that can be applied post-recording.
Right.
You can record clean, and I guess here was the question I had was if you can record clean while listening to what you think is going to be your settings.
Right.
And then go back and tweak those settings after you have the track laid down in your DAW.
Yeah, there's some issues with that too. So the plugin that I'm using now is the standalone. So this is the one that you use if you just want to practice, and it's not going into your DAW.
Okay.
To do what you're talking about is you would have to arm the track in your recording program, right? And then press the audio monitoring for that track. And so basically your guitar's going into the computer.
Going in clean.
Right? And then it's hitting the plug-in, and then you're monitoring that plug-in back. And then it's recorded. And when you monitor those plugins, there's a little bit of latency there. And if you have a really good computer, it's so small that you don't really notice the delay. So that's the kind of thing where if you have a really fast computer, yeah, you can do that. You just plug your guitar straight into your PreSonus, right? And put bias this plug-in on the track, your guitar track, and turn it on and find whatever sound you want and then play it. Then you can go back after you've played it and change the settings on it, or change the amps, change anything you want, because the computer's not going to record the distorted, the amp signal. It's only going to record the clean. So
that would have been amazing when I was in high school, and my band actually tried to record a few things on a old Tascam 4-track cassette recorder.
Yeah, and it's kind of like I was talking to David about earlier when I was asking you, is this different? Do you hear the difference between these two things? He said, no, they sound about the same. When you have the time to go back and tweak things,
yeah,
it never ends. You can be like, oh, okay, you could spend hours and hours and hours on just one tone.
A mic placement.
Right. All those things. So where that's fun for getting sounds and things like that, it can also be a complete time destroyer.
Right.
Yeah. So I would go all the way through that, where I started with doing all the tweaking and doing all those kind of things, and then at some point it's like I just don't have 2 hours to do that. I just need a sound that works right now. And so I think this is cool with the bias stuff. It's real easy to plug. The presets are real easy to go through, and then they make it real easy to go deeper if you want to, but you get a pretty decent sound right away. Which with Line 6, especially with this this one I'm using, the Pod HD, it's tough to find the good sounds in it. You have to really, really, really put work into it. I've got one that I like. There's like 50 million sounds in there. I got one. Okay. Anything else? Any other observations or anything?
No, just like you said. No, go ahead, Lee. David.
I was just wondering if the bias will allow you to offset tuning as well as all these sounds. Like I've tried retuning for a song and it just snapped the string. I just wonder if it actually will off tune.
Does it have a tuner in it?
Not a tuner, but like it's a song I wanted to play. Every string was one octave lower. And you have to reset the whole guitar. Can the amp do that? The bias?
I don't think so. I think it's just going to model the amp. So I'll take a look in there. The guitars that I've seen, there's two ways you go about that. One is like MIDI guitars. Have you ever seen a MIDI guitar or MIDI pickup. It's like this weird kind of hex pickup that you see here, and then your sound is actually going into. I think the Boss had one or two of those, and then you can have it change the actual sounds of your strings. The line 6 what's that line 6 guitar?
The Variax.
Let's see here. Line 6 guitar. What was that? The name of that thing? Yeah, you're right. The Variax. It's like totally modeling. So you can set it so it doesn't even use the pickups. It has a chip on there, and so you can actually change your the frequencies of each string through that. It takes the pickups out of the thing and does it all kind of a digital. It's
Right.
all digital thing. So yeah, unless you're all digital, that's not gonna. I don't think it's gonna be able to do that. But maybe they've figured out how to do that on a regular. From what I understood with the bias is it's doing all of its modeling on amplifiers and effects pedals, and the guitar but it does have I think it has that thing where it can make your guitar sound like a Les Paul or sound like a Telecaster. So
Right.
it'll do that. So it'll add an EQ to it to change the tone of it, but I don't think it'll change the pitch. The only ones I know that you could do that is with the Line 6 Variax, and then also with a MIDI guitar pickup as well.
I had no luck. I tried to, it's just down stepping like on the E string, you make it a D, and I snapped the strings when I started getting to the high E string.
Everybody does. We all
Yeah, it
done
happens. It happens.
We've all snapped it. Just that's why it's like it's easy to it's better to wear glasses when you're first learning to play guitar, because when those strings snap up, they usually go straight for your face. So usually when you'd be tuning, you're like, am I right? Am I in the right place? Bam! Right? and the string usually flies right past your face, and then you have that split second of, can I still see?
You could have took an eye out.
Right. Can I see? I can see. Okay, good. That's all right. I once worked in a music store, and I was changing a string. It was either a bass or it was like a guitar with really heavy low strings, and I had wrapped it and tuned it up, and there was the excess string out that was just kind of hanging off there, and so I had string wire cutters, and I'm trying to cut it, and I'm holding it there, and so finally I had to take two hands to cut it, and of course what happened, that part of the string went flying right and hit a guitar that was on the wall and put a nice nick in the guitar right there. I was like, sorry.
You break it, you buy it.
That's right. Sorry about it. But okay, yeah, no, I don't think the Spark amp will do that, but I'll check into it and see what it does. But yeah, don't worry about breaking strings. You're gonna do it for a while, and then you'll get used to it.
The only reason I'm worried is because I want to change the strings on this Ibanez, but with that Floyd Rose system, I don't know.
Yeah, it's a learning curve for a Floyd Rose completely. So with a Floyd Rose, when you do change the strings, make sure they're the same gauge strings that's on there in the first place. When you start changing the gauge of strings to heavier strings that might have more tension, there's in between the springs in the back of the guitar and the bridge, they're all resting on a Floyd Rose. There's two screws right there, right? And the bridge is on a knife edge on those screws, and so it's a balance between the tension of the springs and the tension of your strings. And if you put on strings that have a higher tension, it's going to pull your bridge up, and you'll have to have it adjusted to bring it back down. So
Well, I know you could clean. I want to clean the fretboard, And I know you could do it easier if you just take one string at a time to change, but if you take them all off to clean the fretboard, this thing is going to collapse upon itself.
Yeah, you know what I do? I get some. It's called Dr. Duck's Axe Wax. It's like an oil, and you can use it on metal and wood. It won't. It's made for guitars, and you don't have to worry about what your finish is. And just get one of those little cheap guitar cloths. You probably have one when you bought the guitar. They usually give you a cloth with the guitar.
Yeah, I have a cloth.
Yeah, and just
I have. I don't know this stuff. This is the only thing I have. It's called Dunlap 65.
Does it work
I
on?
think it's just a lemon oil, ultimate lemon oil.
Yeah, just make sure it's good for neck finishes, because a lot of, like, if you have a rosewood finish, it's not sealed. That's just the polished wood.
Right.
And so, yeah, I'm sure if it's Dunlop, it's made for guitars. So just put a dab of that. Just go underneath your strings and run the cloth up and down a few times, and you can clean them up that way without having to change the strings.
I'll probably do. I don't want to take all the strings off at the same time.
Yeah, I wouldn't do that just to clean it.
Yeah, and it is a rosewood fretboard. Like, I use the Music Nomad F1 oil.
Okay.
And it just, once you put it in there, it just kind of seeps into the fretboard.
Right.
It's not, you don't have to really worry about it getting on your strings.
Yeah.
Well, I cleaned off that Les Paul, and I sort of, there's oils and stuff. I don't know what it is, because I wash my hands every time I play the guitar, but there's still something that's building up on the board.
Yeah, it's right by the frets.
They can literally scrape it.
Yeah. So these oils will loosen that stuff up. You just let it sit on there for a few minutes, and then just rub it off, and that stuff should come off much easier.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's everybody has that, man. It's just finger gunk. It's just it's
finger gunk.
Yeah,
it goes.
It's character, man. It's your guitar.
That's right. It's mojo.
That's right. It's that little extra special something that makes your guitar yours.
How come you play so good?
That's right.
Finger gunk.
It's finger gunk right here.
It's the little bit of you put into what you play.
And wait till you start playing outside in the humidity, those kind of things. Oh man, Goodness, you
Just
go
wait
through a
till the
set of
first few
strings.
times you play,
Yeah,
because you'll be sweating anyway.
that's right. And you're in Florida, so you'll really ramp up there.
Yeah, you're gonna find a whole new meaning to the word sweat when you move to Orlando.
That's right. Okay, guys, I'm gonna check the chat. This is fun. Once I got over the fact that things weren't working out the way I wanted, I had a good time. So let's see here. Chris says, "Yeah, I like having single coil and humbucker pickup guitars, and sometimes using Marshall, sometimes using my Bugera or dialing in the amps to suit different guitars. I don't mess with my pedals too much." Yeah, getting your amps together first is the first line. Once you can understand how your amps work, then pedals. Dino says, "That's all. Get 2 Dumbles, Mesa." And Josh was talking about the Dumble and Vox Waz. And Dino said like a Variax. I think Roland has something like that. Brennan says, "Full face mask when tuning a string is a must." Yes, especially in the beginning. Especially in the beginning. Okay, guys, we went pretty long, but it took me a while to get on there, so I had a good time. Thank you, David. Thank you, Evan, for hanging out with me today. Sorry I didn't get a whole lot of other people in there. Just technology had me flustered in the beginning. But next week we'll have a few more folks come in, and you guys have a great. I guess it's dinner time for David and me. And Evan,
Yeah.
Evan, you got another hour before that happens.
Yeah.
I'm ordering out.
That's brave. You're brave. Brave.
It's curbside pickup, but I'm gonna get it because I ain't cooking tonight.
Well, where I am on Monday, you can just go. You can go to the movies if you want now. So.
Yeah, I saw Georgia's opening up a little bit.
Yeah, I don't know if anybody's gonna go out. Everybody's a little upset about it, but if it keeps some businesses going, and for the brave people who are willing to do it, if it keeps the businesses going, hey, we'll see. We'll see how it goes. I know I'm not going to be one of the first ones. I'll tell you that.
Right?
Well, they're opening up the barber shop. That's how close contact can you get? The barber shop.
Yeah, that's right.
Or they're going to do it from 6 feet away with like garden. The pole fall out.
Don't move.
Yeah, they got tattoo parlors open now too, so you can get you a tattoo.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, get your pandemic tattoos right now. So
Again, from 6 feet away, they're going to do it with a pole. It's not going to be a very good looking tattoo.
It's your prison tattoo.
That's right. Okay, guys, I'm going to go ahead and say bye-bye. You guys have a nice
Have a
rest
good one.
of your evening. And thanks, Chris and Dino and Brendan and Josh and everybody for hanging out with us. It was fun. I'll see you guys tomorrow. We're gonna talk about what we're going to do for the podcast for the week tomorrow in a hangout. All right.
All right. Thanks, Lee.
Okay, thanks, guys. Thanks.
Have a good one.
Bye-bye.